Do you struggle with negative thinking and feel like you need to control your thoughts? Well, stay with me because I'm going to share something that will help you. But I also want to share a different perspective on this, because trying to control your thoughts probably isn't actually the best approach. And I want to explore what is. So let's get right down to it. Now, the first thing to understand is that feeling follows thought. In order for us to have any kind of internal emotional feeling, there must have been some thought that feeling is created by. To have any feeling like stress or anxiety, there must have been some thought that's a response to. If I'm feeling anxious about work, for example, I must be in my mental simulator simulating something about work for that feeling to come up. But it's not necessarily conscious thought, and in fact it probably isn't, because if it was conscious thinking that was leading to these feelings, you'd simply choose to not do that thinking. Now, since feeling follows thought, it seems like the obvious conclusion that the remedy to negative internal feelings is to control our thinking. But there are three problems with that. Problem number one is that you can't control it, or at least not for any length of time, not permanently, that's for sure. I mean, you can control your thoughts for a short amount of time, but there comes a point though where that gets too tiring to keep up. There comes a point where you do have to let your guard down. The bottom line is, it's simply not up to us what shows up in the stream of thought. And even if you try to resist your thoughts, I can guarantee you one thing: thoughts resist arrest. Now, problem number two is that thinking might have an important message for you. It might be reminding you that you have to do something that you could have easily forgotten. You might be walking into a problem, and that thinking might be your intuition warning you about that. Now, the caveat to all that, of course, is it might be none of those things. It might simply be negative biased thinking. But sometimes, to be sure about that, it's useful to tune into the uncomfortable feeling and actually ask, do you have an important message for me? By the way, what books have you already read about managing negative thinking? Please leave a comment down there and tell me what books you've read. I'll read every comment you leave and I'll reply to as many as I can. Now, problem number three is that we only need to control what we fear. So if we need to control our thinking, that means we fear our thinking. And that means we're not free. Now, probably the best way for me to make this point is to use a metaphor. And in actual fact, I'm going to refer to a movie. I don't know if you like superhero movies or whether you would have seen Doctor Strange, but that's the movie I'm going to refer to. Now, if you haven't seen that movie and you don't want the ending to get spoiled, you might want to skip forward a minute or so to not hear this. But if you have seen the movie or you're willing to hear what I've got to say anyway, then it's this. That movie is about a super character called Dormammu who is coming to destroy the Earth. Now, Doctor Strange isn't actually powerful enough to stop him, but what he can do is he traps him in a time loop so that he can't do the destruction of the Earth. But the thing is, Doctor Strange is trapped in that time loop with him. They're both trapped. Now, of course, in the end, in the movie, they make an agreement, which is that Dormammu isn't going to destroy the Earth, so that Doctor Strange will release the time loop. But the thing is, in order to trap Dormammu, Doctor Strange has to trap himself. And it's a little bit like that when we try to control our thinking. If we have to be on guard, monitoring our thinking for things that we have to control and then control them, then we're just as much a prisoner of our thinking as our thinking becomes a prisoner of us. So what is better than trying to control our thinking? It's to change our relationship with thought. To no longer be afraid of our thinking. That's where real emotional freedom is. Now, Sid Banks, whose spiritual teachings are now known as the three principles of mind, consciousness and thought, always said that if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, and for that you might say to not be afraid of their thinking, that alone would change the world. And the interesting thing is that when you stop trying to control your thoughts and stop resisting thoughts and stop fighting and wrestling with your thoughts, then it actually seems like less of the negative thinking comes up anyway. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notifications bell so that you'll know when more content like this arrives. So if changing our relationship with thought is the better way forward, then of course the big question becomes, how? The thing is though, this is not a quick pill. This is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps and you're done. This is a deeper, more long-term investment. This is a deeper and more soulful conversation that takes time to unfold. This falls into the category of practices rather than interventions. Even so, I'd like to give you a place to start. And I think a good place to start is to practice being a neutral observer of your own thinking, to see the stream of thought like a conveyor belt that's moving across, and the thoughts are boxes on the conveyor belt. Now this might seem a bit generation gain to you. And the idea is to be able to see the boxes going across on the conveyor belt without actually having to get involved with any of them, without having to wrestle with any of them. I think a second good place to start is to start doing some self-care practices, like the ones that I'm going to point at in this video up here. I think a third good place to start is to practice a ritual that you can use when you feel stress rising in the moment. Now for that, I do have a simple 5-step practice which you can download by going to the pinned comment below this video and clicking on the download link. It's really simple, it's really effective, and it's absolutely free, so please help yourself. Now, a great follow-on video to continue this conversation is this one here. It's all about when you can't stop thinking about work outside of work. Or if you've already watched that one, then watch this one here. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so that you'll know when more content like this arrives. I wish health and happiness to you, and I'll see you again next week.